For as long as war has raged, heroes from every race have aimed to master the art of battle. Warriors combine strength, leadership, and a vast knowledge of arms and armour to wreak havoc in glorious combat. Some protect from the front lines with shields, locking down enemies, whilst allies support the warrior from behind with spell and bow. Others forgo the shield and unleash their rage at the closest threat with a variety of deadly weapons. The title of warrior is not one given, but one earned. Any being can pick up a sword, but to wield it masterfully against one's enemies with deadly purpose is what sets a real warrior apart from the average soldier. A warrior is trained to use a variety of weapons in a mix of different styles. A true warrior masters them all. Holding the line against their opponent, wielding a shield to deflect enemy blows, decked in thick plate armour to soak attacks, while still being a deadly threat on the battlefield. This is one role a warrior specialises in. Defending key positions and protecting the more vulnerable allies is no small feat, and only those with the highest fortitude, stamina and battle awareness are chosen for this important task. This type of combat will require support from comrades in order to be executed properly, and having a heavy set of armour helps too. Such is the role of the protection warrior. Warriors that fight on the front lines are not always depended upon to defend more vulnerable allies. Some warriors wield a single large weapon that they use to overpower opponents, dealing precise and powerful strikes, controlling the flow of combat, building momentum, finally landing that killing blow before moving on to their next target. An arms warrior is an unstoppable force, finding all enemies' weak points and tearing it down in just a few mighty blows. But why settle for one weapon when you're capable of wielding two? Only the most bloodthirsty and deadly warriors opt to wield two weapons in combat, sacrificing control and defense in favour of being able to land twice as many blows to the enemy. Raining down blow after blow on an opponent without giving them a chance to gain a foothold is a tactic of a fury warrior, if being a dual-wielding berserker can be classed as a tactic at all. Although the many races of Azeroth are very different from one another, they all share a common aspect on the battlefield, and that is that every army has its warriors. In the human kingdom of Stormwind, capital of the Alliance, warriors are a common sight, being able to trace their lineage back to the first human nation of Arathor. The men and women of Stormwind have a strong connection to martial warfare. Before they were taught to wield the arcane, before their paladins and priests wielded the holy light, they were warriors. In fact, humans have contributed some of the greatest warriors in Azeroth's history. Another member of the Alliance that holds martial prowess in high regard is the Dwarven Kingdom of Ironforge. With a long tradition of combat training, specialising in the use of axe and hammer, the dwarves are some of the most formidable warriors in Azeroth. Although they stand shorter than most of Azeroth's other races, what they lack in reach, they more than make up for in physical strength and fortitude. After being driven from their own home of Gnomeregan, the gnomes were taken in by the dwarves of Ironforge. It was here that the gnomes, being an inquisitive and curious race, took up arms and trained their combat skills alongside the dwarves. Granted, not many gnomes in Azeroth hear the call of the warrior, but some believe that their diminutive size offers them a distinct advantage in the midst of melee combat. Often the brunt of jokes, some have even gone as far as to say that gnome warriors don't exist. Those are the ones that risks being hamstrung the most, often not serving a major role in the front lines of battle. The Alliance sometimes uses gnome warriors to hold defensive positions, such as artillery emplacements and the more vulnerable spellcasters. One thing to remember is that a sharp blade doesn't need to be swung hard if it lands in the right places. Although the Night Elves are renowned as archers, hunters and spellcasters, they also have a considerable army. Thousands of years before the other races had even begun to unify into the societies we know them as today, the Night Elves had a vast and highly developed culture. It was during the War of the Ancients that the Night Elf army pushed the corruption of the Burning Legion from Azeroth, and in this time it was the foot soldiers that formed the backbone of their force, standing toe to toe with demons including Infernals, Doomguards and Fellhounds. Some of the most respected and skillful warriors of the Night Elves took their place in history. More recently, the Draenei took their place as valuable members of the Alliance, and their martial skills and combat tactics were indeed welcome. Although comparative in height to Night Elves, the Draenei have a much thicker and muscular build, making them one of the largest races on Azeroth. Granted, all Draenei have some prowess in magic, but guards and soldiers are still needed to keep order, and this is where the most skilled fighters can claim the title of warrior. Not much is known of Draenei history before they set foot, or in their case hoof, on Azeroth, but one thing is known. When the Orcs of Draenor waged war on the Draenei people, only the fiercest and most skilled warriors could stand against them. These battles, fighting the bloodthirsty Orcs, may have birthed the first true Draenei warriors. In the northern reaches of the Eastern Kingdoms, Gen Greymane's people of Gilneas may have been affected by the curse of the Worgen, but they still retain the skills and abilities that they had when they were fully human. Gilneas had a formidable army and were instrumental in defeating the Orcs in the Second War. The battlefield veterans of this war were most definitely some of Lordran's greatest warriors. Years later, after falling under the curse of the Worgen, the Gilneans still retain their warriors. Unlike the feral Worgen that lack control, fighting like animals with their teeth and claws, the Gilnean Worgen choose to retain the aspects from their human side, fighting in armour with weapons in hand. Now we have looked at how each of the Alliance races has its own warriors, we can take a look at the other side of the coin and see how the Horde's warriors came to be. The Orcs form the backbone of the Horde, and more than any other race value physical strength and combat ability over anything else. In fact, this is evident in the way clan chieftains are chosen. The Orc that leads the clan leads from the front in most cases, and is often the fiercest warrior in the clan. The Warsong, Frostwolf, Bleeding Hollow and Blackrock clans are prime examples of this. Orc warriors often enter rages of bloodlust to fuel their attacks, and in some cases are seen as reckless by other races, charging into battle without first assessing the situation. One thing most Orcs do value, however, is honour, and true Orc warriors will not enter combat without first warning an opponent that they're going to do so. Of all the races, Orc warriors have perhaps shaped Azeroth's fate more than any other. Once a savage and cruel race, the Trolls under the leadership of Vol'jin turned their backs on their cannibalistic origins and embraced the value of honour as their bonds with the Orcs strengthened. Troll history is written in conflict and strife, having fought many battles with humans and elves in the early years of Azeroth. In fact, it was only after employing magic did the allied human and elf forces manage to defeat the warriors of the Troll army in the north of the Eastern Kingdoms. Like Orcs, Trolls employ a variety of different styles in their combat tactics. Some Troll warriors are known as Berserkers, raging into battle regardless of self-defense, preferring instead to make their opponent think about it as they rain down blow after savage blow onto their enemies. Others equip traditional Troll armour and a level head to outwit opponents. The largest race in the Horde, the Tauren, were nomadic people, moving with and hunting the Kodo herds across the plains of Mulgore. When the marauding Centaur persisted their attacks towards the various Tauren clans, the Tauren decided to unite, and it was the job of the Tauren warriors to defend their people. The warriors of the Tauren, despite what their massive size might suggest, are very level-headed in combat and opt for a more defensive strategy opposed to reckless charges. This is most likely due to their origins as nomads and their skirmishes with the Centaur. Having no city walls to hide behind and defend from, Tauren warriors would create a perimeter around the more vulnerable clan members and wait for the Centaur to charge them, fighting them off with massive wooden totems. In the Horde, Tauren on the front lines are usually only brought down by being outnumbered by multiple foes. Seeing a Tauren warrior standing over 10 feet tall, clad in thick plate armour and wielding a weapon often larger than their foes, is enough to strike fear into the hearts of any enemy. Before they were killed and reanimated into what they are now, the Forsaken were once men and women of Lordaeron. Having been instrumental in pushing the Orcs out of Azeroth during the Second War, the soldiers of the Lordaeron Alliance boasted one of the largest armies in Azeroth, and some of the greatest warriors too. Now, having faced death once already, the Forsaken have stopped fearing it, for it is now part of their daily existence. During the Horde campaign in Northrend, the Forsaken deployed its army on the shores of Howling Fjord and pushed across the frigid lands. Its warriors were instrumental in finally defeating the Lich King. A more uncommon sight are warriors amongst the ranks of the Sin'dorei. Due to their dependency of magic and the arcane, and after the destruction of the Sunwell, the Blood Elves turned to other means of power. The Blood Elves turned to harnessing the power of the captured Naaru, consorting with demons, and even a form of the Holy Light. It is possible that certain Blood Elves managed to resist the urge to harness other types of magic, and instead channeled their energy into learning a different type of power, that of martial prowess. This could be where the Blood Elves formally acknowledge themselves as warriors, on the same level that the other races do. The Rangers and Hunters of the Blood Elves would use hit and run tactics to outmaneuver their opponents, but it would seem that during an era of war such as the one we live in now, the Blood Elves realise it is inevitable that they will be facing enemies on fields of battle, head to head. The warriors of the Sin'dorei now stand side by side with their Horde comrades, wearing the same plate armour and wielding an edged blade rather than their traditional roots of magic. Anyone that has been to Gadgetzan or Booty Bay and thought of causing trouble will remember the sight of goblin bruisers. In fact, it was even mentioned by the great Orcish warrior Broxigar that goblins are strong considering their small size. The life in the South Seas is a harsh one, with the constant threat of pirate attacks and even magical sea beasts. The trade princes of the goblins realised how important it is to have a fighting force to repel these invaders, even if it is just to protect their profits. This is where goblin warriors come about, though not embracing the concept of honour as their orc brethren in the Horde do. It is likely that a goblin warrior fights for fame and glory, eventually culminating in wealth that comes from that. Since the mists that shrouded the land of Pandaria have parted, the Pandaren have joined the ranks of the Horde and Alliance. Once slaves of the ancient Mogu race, the Pandaren were forbidden to carry weapons. This led Pandaren to train their bodies and channel their energy so that they could fight unarmed. After the Pandaren uprising, where they successfully overthrew the Mogu, Pandaren once again trained to use weapons. Keeping their combat skills sharp, in their constant battles with the Mantid and Sorok, the Pandaren trained some of the most skillful warriors in Azeroth. Pandaren warriors embody the balance between power and control, fighting fiercely whilst keeping a level head. Pandaren warriors are now found fighting for both factions, and whilst their roots are those of monks, the warriors of the Pandaren have made their mark on history as some of the greatest warriors in Azeroth. There are many counts through Azeroth's history of warriors performing heroic deeds. Some warriors, however, have left a bigger mark on Azeroth's history than others. Here are a few of Azeroth's greatest and most respected warriors. Lord Anduin Lothar, also known as the Lion of Azeroth, was considered to be one of the greatest warriors of all time, not just by his own people but by his enemies too. Lord Lothar led the army of the Alliance of Lordaeron against the Orcs during the Second War and won many victories, actually pushing the Orcish army from Lordaeron all the way back to Blackrock Mountain. Unfortunately, during the Battle of Blackrock Spire, Lothar became separated from his main body of troops and was forced into single combat with Ogrim Doomhammer, war chief of the Horde. It was in this fight that he was killed. Even today, a monument of the fallen warrior still stands in the Burning Steppes on the spot that Lord Anduin Lothar died. Another very notable human warrior would be Stormwind's current monarch, King Varian Wrynn. Learning martial skills from a young age and leading missions against Orc raiding parties after his kingdom of Stormwind was retaken from the Orcs, Varian had already proven himself to be a fine warrior. But it was only when captured by Orcs and forced to take part in gladiatorial fights did Varian really prove himself as the warrior he is today. even managing to fight off a massive crocolisk with a single wooden stick. Rarely seen without his legendary blade, Charlemagne, the warrior king of Stormwind continues to lead his people and the Alliance against all odds. One of the most famous warriors in Dwarven history is Muradin Bronzebeard, having fought in the battles of Blackrock Spire and the Dark Portal during the Second War, and many other battles since, eventually becoming the Bronzebeard representative on the Council of the Three Hammers. His most memorable battles were fought in the frigid lands of Icecrown, along with Prince Arthas Menethil. It was here that he survived his brush with death, and would later go on to join the Alliance part of the attack on Icecrown Citadel. There are countless tales of Orcish warriors performing impossible feats on the battlefield, but none stand out more than this one single orc. Broxigar the Red, brother of Varrock Saurfang, was taken back in time along with the Red Dragon Crassus and the wizard Ronin to aid the Night Elves in their fight against the Burning Legion during the War of the Ancients. It was in the final battle that took place in the skies over the Well of Eternity that Brox realised his allies needed more time to close the portal that would herald Sargeras into the world of Azeroth. From the back of a red dragon, Broxigar jumped down into the portal and through to the realm of the Burning Legion. In his final stand, it was Brox that struck down so many demons with his enchanted axe that he eventually stood on a hill of their bodies, taunting more to challenge him as he blocked their advance towards the portal. Brox, however, was eventually faced with the Lord of the Burning Legion itself, Sargeras. Brox met his fate with a smile on his face, before being crushed to death by the massive Titan, but not before managing the impossible task of landing a wounding blow on the Titan's leg before he died. A feat that had never before been managed by anyone in the history of creation. Broxigar Saurfang was easily one of Azeroth's most skilled and renowned warriors. For those taking up the call of the warrior, know that you will be dedicating your life and purpose to mastering the art of battle, for you cannot spell warrior without the word war. You do not need the holy light, for the devout restrain themselves to the teachings of their order. You do not need concern yourselves with the workings of the arcane, or consorting with demons for your strength. You don't need the elements or the magic of nature to fuel your attacks. You are a warrior. You are war itself. You will take your sword to the front lines of the battlefield and earn your glory the only way you know how, slaying your enemies and hurdling the dead. Victory or death.